Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
The Bears.
Because of the way they play the nickel corner here, and the nickel corner plays 88, 85% of the snaps. He's got to be like part linebacker.
The Bears.
When you're in the scouting room, there's going to be differences of opinion.
The Bears.
Once coaches get involved, of course, they've got their own opinions about what fits best for what they want to do, and that could be drastically different than what the scouts say.
Well, you're looking at traits, and remember when he tested very, very well.
The Bears.
One thing good about Kevin, he's been with 2 other organizations, as well as being the commissioner of the Big Ten. He's been around.
The Bears.
With Greg Olson, Jerry didn't want to get rid of him. I didn't want to get rid of him. Nobody wanted to get rid of him. One guy wanted to get rid of him. Mike Martz, because Mike Martz didn't know what the hell to do with him. We tried to talk Lovey out of hiring Mike Martz for a month and a half. He's playing zone, but number one, he doesn't get enough depth with the drop. But who the hell's going? How many times does a 305, 310-pound defensive tackle drop into coverage, especially in a key situation?
The Bears.
Greg, why are teams wrong on quarterback evaluation so often?
Number one, it's a hard position to evaluate. There's probably not as many real good quarterback evaluators as there needs to be.
The Bears. The Bears. The Bears.
Welcome everyone to a fresh episode of GTF, Gabriel Talks Football, alongside Greg Gabriel. How are you, Greg? Where are you? Where are you there? There he is. Greg Gabriel.
Wonderful. I'm tired.
Yeah, me too.
I get wound up watching games when they're at night, and so then I don't fall asleep till 1 o'clock.
Ooh, boy, 1 o'clock. Yeah, that was about the same for me. Let's get right into it, Greg. I love the Chicago Bears, the effort they put forward, being undermanned, traveling across country, the sickness raging through Halas, the fight that they showed throughout. I mean, I'm not one for participation trophies and stuff like that, but I love the effort and the makeup of this team. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me.
No, you're right. I wish the defense played a little bit better. I'm not going to say they didn't show up, but they didn't play well. It's probably their worst performance all year. But at the same time, if you've looked at San Francisco over the last month, San Francisco is arguably the best team in the NFL right now. And they are cooking. I watched the tape of the Colts game last week, and their offense was the same last week as it was last night. They're on fire. And Purdy is pretty darn good. So, what I think this very well could be, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here, it could be a preview of the NFC Championship game, and it'd be right back out there.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, that's the main topic of conversation. You already brought it up, is the defense. And I almost excuse the way the defense played because of all of the things that happened at Halas, and because this 49ers offense, as you said, is incredibly hot right now. I mean, they came into the game not having punted in 2 games. Their offense is just running on all cylinders, probably the greatest offensive display that we've seen since Patrick Mahomes was in his second year in the league with the Kansas City Chiefs, right up there with the Rams and Kurt Warner. This offense is really tremendous. And so the Bears just don't have the personnel right now to match with them.
No, not, and you're right. And to be honest with you, this game yesterday didn't mean a whole lot to me one way or the other. When Carolina won, I thought the Bears are out of getting the top seed. And the reason being this, had the Bears won the game, San Francisco probably well, they would have been out of contention for the number 1 seed, and then rested guys next week against Seattle because it wouldn't have mattered, and Seattle would have wrapped up the number 1 anyway. So it gets down to they had to win. Bears got to win 1 game. They got to play Detroit, and right now Detroit's playing awful. I mean, they got schmucked earlier in the week by a Minnesota team with a quarterback who's never played before.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And now you got to play outside. I mean, they went to Minnesota. At least they played in the dome. Now they got to go outside.
Yep, exactly.
And they don't play good outside.
They don't, and they cannot get that running game going. Despite the fact they have Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, their rushing attack has just disappeared. Like presto chango, Houdini just made them disappear. If they run the ball like they had the last 2 games against the Bears will swallow them up by halftime.
Well, if these guys show up like they're capable of showing up, meaning Detroit, it can be a close game. But based on what they've done lately, and it seems like there's just a lot of stuff behind the scenes going on there.
Yeah, I agree.
And so it's, what's really, really going on? Campbell's getting some heat. Coaches are getting heat. It's the final game. It means nothing to them unless they just want to be a spoiler. I mean, it could be like the Bears going up to Green Bay last year. But that was a different story, too, because I think there was let's try to get away from this 10-game losing streak situation. But here's what it is. I'll be honest. I want to play fucking cheeseheads again.
I know you do. Reading your posts on social media.
So, I want to win this game. So we're locked into that. These morons up north of the state line are totally delusional people.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still, a week later, they're still making excuses. Well, you played our backup quarterback. So I've had to remind them, yeah, and you went to a Super Bowl going against Caleb Haney.
Yeah, you've been having fun with those guys. It's very enjoyable. It's like watching.
I'm probably the most hated man in the state of Wisconsin. And if by chance Green Bay did win, and that's not going to happen, I'm sure I'll catch a lot of flack. But you think I really give a shit?
No. What do you think about what our man Lutz, the reporter, is stating here? And thank you again for your donation. Lutz, always very generous. Dan Campbell's last game is next weekend against the Bears because the players have quit on Campbell. Do you sense that?
It's an interesting take. I haven't watched them close enough to say that.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. They've lost. I'm not going to say they lost half their coaching staff, but they lost over a third of their coaching staff last year to this year. And some of the changes he made didn't work out, especially the offensive coordinator. Campbell's taken over play calling duties. That's turned out to be a disaster. They turned the ball over like 6 times last week at Minnesota, or earlier this week at Minnesota. I mean, that's crazy.
It is nuts. No doubt about it. And it was Jared Goff who had most of those turnovers. He had 4 turnovers in Sunday's game or this past game. So and Campbell said after the game, I'm going to look at everything, including myself, because it always starts with me, but I'm going to look at everything. It sounded ominous in that there could be changes at the coaching staff. There could be changes in the quarterback position because Goff just can get you from A to B, but he can't get you from B to C, C meaning championship.
That's why McVay got rid of him.
Yep.
That's fact. That's not me saying that. That's fact. You talk to anybody with the Rams organization. McVay said, he's good to get you so far, and that's it.
Yep. And so I I wish the Lions well in the 25th century. I'm not much of a fan of them just because their fans have become so intolerable since they've started winning games again.
No, they've been put in their place.
Yes, they have.
They've shut up in the last week or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. It's an interesting question here from my man D. Staron. He says, if that game last night was played in Chicago, do the Bears win?
Probably.
Yep.
I mean, you look at the weather here yesterday.
Yeah. Let me tell you something, Greg. I'm reading all these comments about how terrible the Bears defense is. Well, just how terrible is the 49ers defense? They gave up just as many points.
That's right. And the Bears went down the field just like San Francisco went down the field. That was, I tweeted out last night, I said that's probably the best Sunday night game we've seen all year. And then somebody said in years, not just. and they may be right. The only thing wrong with the game was Chris Collinsworth. He wasn't watching the same game as everybody else.
Oh my goodness! I'm glad you.
I don't know how Tirico can put up with it, because Tirico is like up here as a play-by-play guy.
He really is. He's sensational, and Collinsworth is like down here.
Oh my God!
In the gutter.
You know, the thing was he criticizes two throws of Caleb. And there's absolutely nothing wrong. He's got guys in his face. He's rushing. He's going backwards. And he didn't make the throw. The guy was wide open. Let me tell you something. Patrick Mahomes, Brett Favre in his best years, and Aaron Rodgers in his best years wouldn't have made that throw.
Exactly. It's like he came in with this prescribed narrative.
Well, that's like Troy Aikman.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what that is? That's called not doing your homework.
Oh, Mr. Spano, don't say that about Tirico. And you're right, Team Skeletor. I keep forgetting. I have not released Don Burr out of internet jail yet. I will do so. I promise to do so. So we'll see. But I do agree with the Scrolls here. Collinsworth is an absolute idiot. I'm trying to be as fair as possible, but he was just driving me nuts last night. All right, Greg, we talked about the sickness that ran through Halas Hall. This is what our head coach, Ben Johnson, said about it.
We all understand that if someone has to go down because they're sick, then someone else has to step up. And we did the best we could as a organization in terms of trying to stop it, from masks to washing hands to, being diligent that way. But, it certainly did a number on our guys, but, we felt good about the guys that we went to the game with. They were going to be able to play like they're 100%.
What to say about Darnell to fly out here this morning and play, full game the way he did?
Yeah, he was excited. He came in this morning and he had a big smile on his face. Hey, you can't hold me back from this one, he said. So that was good to see.
Isn't it ironic that the only time we see him smile in a post-game conference is after a loss?
The one guy, though, he played most of the game, but obviously wasn't close to himself, was DJ.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
DJ looked lethargic, and he had to be feeling lethargic, probably feeling like you are right now.
Absolutely.
And so, he was not a factor in the game. He was only targeted a couple times. Thank God Luther Burden jumped to the forefront. It's funny, they lose on the last play of the game, but had Burden or Loveland made the catches that they dropped earlier,
mm-hmm.
the game probably goes another way. But hey, they lost the game. San Francisco won. Down to Detroit coming here next week. I'm glad the game's here. And then it's probably get ready for Green Bay.
Yeah. Hey, Tremaine Edmonds is getting a lot of heat in the chat and on social media. This is, if I recall correctly, his second game back from injury. Is it because he's still ramping up, that he doesn't look like the guy prior to his injury?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched the tape of the game yet from last night yet. He also made some pretty good plays.
I thought so too.
You know,
I don't
so
think he was
the
awful.
guy has range. The defense can do more with him in there. The defense as a whole did not play good. The pass rush, the only guy who was providing the pass rush was Austin Booker.
Yep. He's got one. He had the only sack in the entire game.
And he had 3 bats, and he had a couple hits. I mean, he was working hard. Now he was working on the backup too most of the game.
Yep, indeed.
But I'll tell you, that quarterback, Brock Purdy, a couple times, Austin Booker had him right in his sights, and he was able to escape. That you got to give Purdy a lot of credit for that. And the one he throws the touchdown pass on.
He had a sensational game. This is Ben Johnson talking about Purdy.
I mean, he's a dangerous player, particularly when he can see down the field and have that much time. I agree with you. And then he extended some of those plays with his legs too, and he did a real nice job. And we certainly didn't affect him enough.
He was very blunt there. We did not affect him enough, and that is so true. But hats off to Purdy. He's on a hot streak now that is rare for any quarterback in the NFL to be as hot as he is. He looks absolutely fabulous. He's going to take advantage of defenses that has holes, like the Bears defense, unfortunately.
I think the interesting thing for them is, they're probably going to have home field now, because I playing for home field next week against Seattle, and it's in San Francisco. Or Santa Clara. I can't see San Francisco losing. And then even the Super Bowl's in that stadium.
Yeah, exactly. They really have a great road.
They're home till next season unless somebody beats them.
Indeed.
I'll be honest. I think if you get a rematch, Bears can beat them.
I think so too. But yeah, of course, it's about defense. But let me ask you this question.
Now they're probably going to have Warner back. How effective he will be on their defense, that remains to be seen. He's been out since midseason. Excuse me.
He could look like Tremaine Edmonds last night.
Yeah,
so
it might take him a month to get going.
This is the playoff picture. If the Bears clinch the number 2 seed with a win over the Lions or an Eagles loss versus the Commanders in Philadelphia.
The Eagles aren't going to lose to the Commanders.
Yeah, especially in Philadelphia. The number 2 seed will host the Packers, and the number 3 seed will host an NFC West opponent, which could be the 49ers, the Rams, or Seahawks. So Bears have to win against the Lions. This is a critical game, in my opinion. I don't want to go back out west.
Yeah, I posted today, it's important to win because you're playing the weakest team in the playoffs for the NFC. And somebody said, no, that's the NFC South team. And I said, no, that team's the 4th seed and playing home. So it's the weakest team in the way the playoff format is set up is Green Bay. And the loudmouths up north can say whatever the hell they want. They're delusional. They're delirious. They got dementia. And all of the above. I mean, they're like all Joe Biden sitting up there.
All right, let me ask you about the Bears' offensive play calling, because I got the impression that Ben came with a determination to unlock all of the keys to the passing attack. He knew the team was going to have to score a lot of points. And so he kind of bypassed the run game. Greg, DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai had only 17 rushes combined, yet they got 92 yards, 5.4 yards per carry, and Swift had 2 rushing touchdowns. Do you think that Ben could have been a little bit more loyal to the running attack and keep the San Francisco offense off the field and still, maintain possession and score touchdowns?
Well, the first 2 possessions, the Bears had the ball. They didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what led to the big time of possession advantage by San Francisco in the first half. Second half was a lot more even. In fact, the Bears might have won the time of possession just in the second half.
Yeah.
But the first half was totally lopsided. But, it's tough to say because you got to go with what the flow of the game tells you to go to.
Sure thing.
And Caleb was really on. I thought that might have been Caleb's best game.
Absolutely.
Now he's had some games that maybe statistically were better, but like the free throw that ends up being a touchdown to Loveland. A lot of times you get a situation like that and you don't make something happen, and he kept it alive long enough for Loveland to break open, and he throws a TD pass.
Yeah.
So it's just little things like that. The throw to Burden was really good. He had a bunch of nice. No one's really improved, and nobody's saying anything. His deep ball, the second half of the year, has gotten so much better.
Yeah, and that's another knock on Chris Collinsworth. He's saying he's been throwing the deep ball great all season long. No, have you watched the tape? He's progressively gotten better at throwing the deep ball.
Well, that's what I say. You go back to it's not doing your homework.
Right.
And I have no respect for analysts that don't do their homework. I've been doing this for 20 years. This is easy. They sit through a production meeting the day before the game, and that's it. And they don't watch tape during the week. And then you get a guy, and I got to say, the guy who's really jumped by leaps and bounds this year has been Tom Brady. And he's not away from the game that long to know exactly what's happening. Greg Olson does his work. The guys that do their work are really interesting to listen to. And then you got these other clowns like Aikman, Collinsworth, and some of the other ones, even Romo. Romo's had one good game, I think, in the last 2 years, and that was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And Romo used to be way up here. He'd see an offensive formation, and he'd tell you before the ball was snapped exactly what was going to happen. He can't do that anymore because he doesn't do the work.
Indeed. By the way, the two rookies, Luther Burden and Colston Loveland, what sensational games. Burden had 8 catches for 138 yards and a 35-yard touchdown. Loveland had added 6 catches for 94 yards and a 36-yard score. Those guys, and hopefully Rome gets back soon, because those 3 guys are the future of this passing attack along with Caleb. I just can't say enough about the acquisition of those young players to help with Caleb as he matures and becomes maybe the best quarterback in the NFL.
Well, one thing we know Rome is going to play in. He will play in the first playoff game. Beyond that, who knows?
Yeah.
But, and he didn't play in either of the Green Bay games.
That's right. Neither one of them. That's indeed right. Yeah, and he's going to be a matchup problem for that defensive backfield for Green Bay. Absolutely. Okay. By the way, it is feared that Noel Sewell has a torn Achilles tendon.
Oh, yeah, there's no question. That was easy to see.
Yeah. I mean, that's what immediately we grasped.
Having had one, they're easy to see.
You had one? I forgot that you did. Yeah, wow.
I got one 2019, sitting where I am now. And like the mailman comes to the door because he's got a package or something. So he knocks at the door, and you know how the dog starts barking. So I jump up to get to to get there real quick. I popped it before I went 2 steps.
Jeez.
And I knew exactly what it was. And it's funny. People say it's a real painful injury. It was painful for maybe 2 to 3 seconds, and then everything was numb.
And then it's gone. Did the postal worker notice you were in pain, or that's something?
No, I probably had a little look on my face, and I just said, I think I just tore my Achilles. And so then I called the Bears orthopedic. I got his number because I worked with him for so long. And I said, hey, Mark, I just tore my Achilles. He goes, how do you know? I said, because I could feel it pop. And he goes, can you get up on your toes. I said, nope. Can you raise your toes? Nope. You tore it.
Arnie is asking, how long did it take you to recuperate?
I was in a boot. I was in a cast, and then I was in a boot for 6 weeks, and then you start doing heavy rehab. The surgical procedures for an Achilles in fact, they're improved now. They're better now than they were in 2019. In 2019, I can't remember the name of the procedure they did, but what they used to do is, when you tear a tendon, it looks like a mop. You just got strands. And so what they used to do is trim off those strands, pull the tendon together and stitch it together. And that was one of the reasons it took so damn long, because you had to, loosen up the tendon, and it just took so long for it to heal. Now what they do is they leave the strands, and they kind of interlock them like this and stitch through it. And it ends up being stronger than the real tendon.
How about that?
And so it cuts off rehab time by months. It used to be a year injury or more. There's guys playing in less than 6 months. Aaron Rodgers had the newest procedure that a doctor out in LA did. And that he was like practicing and doing stuff on the sideline within 2.5 to 3 months.
Yeah. I remember
when he was with the Jets. So yeah, every injury is a little bit different, depending exactly where in the tendon it tore. But like I say, the rehab time is considerably less. It's easier to come back from. There was a time when it was a career ender, and not anymore. Guys are coming back all the time from that.
Indeed. Well, hopefully Noel, is going to do that new procedure, and he'll be back in training camp as better than ever.
Well, if he uses the Bears guy, that's the guy who did mine. That's all he does.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, he wasn't. He's a specialist in Achilles. His name's Armand Kalikian.
Okay.
And if they use him, that's what he'll do.
Very cool. All right. Speaking of rehab, Bears, Greg, how confident are you that the Bears can rehab their defense for this playoff push? They're in the playoffs, but they've given up 880 yards over the last 2 games. The run defense has allowed almost 400 yards in those 2 games. How confident are you that Dennis Allen can get this group back to the best that they've been this year? Because they haven't been this bad this year. It seems like they're playing their worst defense of the season right now.
They are, and now they didn't give up points last week. They gave up yards.
Yes, indeed, yes.
They gave up points yesterday.
Yes.
So the most important thing is don't give up points.
Absolutely.
But you know what? The guy's a good coach. And the players got to take it upon themselves to play better.
Mm-hmm.
And he may have to do some things differently that he's currently not doing or currently not showing.
Yeah.
Now, could illness have played an effect a little bit on yesterday? I don't know if we'll ever know. They're not going to use it as an excuse. Could there have been some guys on the defense a little bit under the weather? Maybe. I don't know. Fact is, that game's over. Detroit's this week. It wasn't a game that had to be won. Like I said, as soon as when Carolina won yesterday, earlier in the day, in my opinion, that didn't matter what happened.
Mm-hmm.
They just had to win one game.
Indeed. Do you think that Allen might look at DeMarco Jackson? Because I don't think Jackson got any snaps on the defense, special team snaps, but no snaps at the linebacker position yesterday. And this is 2 weeks after coming off NFC Defensive Player of the Week. Do you
I mean,
think
yeah,
there's a chance?
Now he might have been dinged up a little bit too. I don't have the answer to that.
Sure.
But you're right. I mean, it's kind of surprising as well as he's been playing the mic, and I think so. I think Sewell was playing the mic too. So maybe there might have been something wrong with him that Sewell was playing instead of him.
Indeed, who knows who was affected by this flu somehow, some way. So just a dirty trick played on the Bears by the football gods to get that virus floating around Halas Hall.
Well, I'd rather have it now than 2 weeks from now.
You ain't kidding, brother. You ain't kidding at all. All right, I want to play a little bit of Caleb Williams talking after the game. I'm so impressed with how he's conducting himself in press conferences. He sounds like a true leader, and he's speaking the truth here as he talks about being a truth teller.
Caleb, you've been on the other end of these a lot this year. How do you describe just kind of your feeling after that final play?
Yeah, it's frustrating. Obviously, you don't want to lose a game ever, and then also just being in that position and having a shot at the end is all you can ask for in those moments. But we got to do a better job overall, just execution. We made too many mistakes as a team, whether it's penalties, whether it's alignments, whether it's assignments, things like that. We'll go back, we'll figure it out. We'll be truth tellers to ourselves because we got a great shot at the end of the season to put ourselves in in a good spot, but also to get back on a roll and get back on a run here through the playoffs, and that's what you're focused on. You want to go back and figure out why what happened today is what happened, and like I said, be truth tellers to us as a team, and that'll better us for what's up.
I love the way he chose his words there. He didn't throw anybody under the bus, but he made it clear. We just, there was parts of our game that were pretty bad.
I read somewhere, I think one of the writers was saying that Ben said the alignment on the last call was off.
Yeah, I got that soundbite.
The players didn't line up correctly.
Yeah, I got that soundbite as well. Let's play it right now. This is talking about the last play. Both the coach and Caleb talk about it.
Getting lined up with not much time, and we were slightly lined up wrong, and so didn't have enough time to be able to fix it.
Yeah, we didn't quite get aligned in the formation we wanted to. It's on me. I didn't give him the call fast enough, and so he's trying to piecemeal it together. I got to do a better job on that.
But we just had to try and make something out of nothing in that situation, and then we, like I said, we had a shot. With all of that going on, time running down, us misaligned and things like that, we had a shot, and just got to give my guys a shot in that situation. I think I haven't obviously gone back and watched it yet, but I think I ended up dirting the ball. Didn't get my legs into it, just put the ball in the end zone in that moment. And if it's a pick or incomplete at that point, then but can't dirt the ball.
The first view you saw, the end zone view, actually there was a guy coming across open on the center right of the end zone that had Caleb seen him, game over.
Totally over. In fact, in that second replay, the kind of the sideline view, you see number 2 totally open. He's jumping up and down, totally open, but that's an almost impossible.
Well, Caleb got people. I mean, he's scrambling. I mean,
right.
He's got time. And part of that is that the alignment was off. Mm-hmm. And when the alignment's off, that throws your protection off.
Yeah, indeed. Flex says we should have had 2 more downs. It shouldn't have come down to that play. Bad clock management. I don't know about that. They had. You're right in that maybe we could have gotten a couple of plays. The play that kind of screwed up the time of possession was the hook and ladder. Let's take a look at it.
The corner actually fell off, and we thought he was actually going to attach a little bit more than he did, and so we thought Swift was going to be able to get around the edge, and the corner ended up sloughing off, and they made a great play. DeAndre got as much as he could, got down, and we ended up clocking and had the last play.
There's some legitimacy to what he's saying there. That ran through our 3 timeouts there in that final possession, but didn't have one at that moment. It would have really helped instead of having to clock things with just 4 seconds left.
Yeah, it could have had 2 more plays. They used a timeout earlier in the drive that they may not have needed to use.
Mm-hmm.
But, now it's afterthought.
Yeah.
It's easy to question those. That stuff's on the coach. What I like about Ben is that, he, in his presser, he said, "Hey, this is on me. I got the play in late."
Mm-hmm. Yep, love that.
And so, and that's the accountability he expects from the players. He throws on himself too.
He sure does.
And that's that's refreshing to see. Not making any excuses at all. I just, I think this team is so far ahead of what we thought it was going to be right now.
Absolutely.
I'm excited for the future. I posted earlier today, Ryan and Ben took care of the offense this year, trying to get players both for Caleb and for Ben to run his offense.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think this year the offseason will be on the defense. And people say, well, can they get Hendricks or one of these Hendrickson or one of these other guys? And I'm just thinking, they don't got any money. You got to find a way to create money. And there's guys that, there's not a safety under contract. So you got to find ways to bring, you want to bring back at least 2 of them, I would think. And then you got guys like Nashawn Wright, who's out of contract. So you got to find ways to create money. And that means restructuring some of the guys you already have. Does that mean they could trade somebody? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because that'll free up some money. But if you trade a player, you got to find somebody to step in to replace them.
Indeed. By the way, I'm a little worried about Nashawn Wright. He had concussion-like symptoms early in the game. And then I saw on another play where he was kind of holding his helmet in one of those ways that usually they'll check him out. So he might, who knows, because sometimes those symptoms really start to pop up a day later. He might be on concussion protocol. He did not have one of his better games yesterday. Ricky Pearsall just dusted him left and right. But nonetheless, I love what he's done for this team this year. Got a question for you from STC Scott. He is asking, was that penalty negating the interception by CJ Gardner a bad call?
When I first saw the replay, I thought it was a good call. He hit him up in here.
Right.
And so I thought the call was legitimate. Is there another angle that could have shown it better? Probably. Mm-hmm. So I know Gardner Johnson didn't think it was a good call, but obviously, when you make a penalty, you're like a criminal. I'm never guilty, I mean,
exactly. All right, I got a few questions. Oh, look I missed this one from Stephen Nagishi, a $5 donation, and he asked, does upgrading the talent on defense make Allen a better coordinator in 2026? Or does Allen himself needs to do some soul searching this offseason? Thank you, Steven.
What's the Bears record right now?
11-5, I think it is. Yeah.
They played pretty good with what they got. I don't want to hear any criticism. This guy is known as one of the better defensive coaches in football.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have all the parts. Like they got all the parts for Ben on the offense. They couldn't do it on the defense. In hindsight, Grady Jarrett got cut like at 10 in the morning, and he was a Bear about 4 hours later on that opening day of free agency. And is that a move they should have made? I don't know. When you look at it now, and so, and can you get out of it next year? Maybe, but I think it depends. what's available in free agency, what's it going to cost, and what's available in the draft.
Mm-hmm. I agree totally with your response there.
And people say, well, somebody asked me the question today, well, who can drop to us in the draft? And I said, I can't answer that now. I said, it's 2 to 3 weeks away before we know who's in the draft. Underclassmen have until like the 15th to declare. And I think the national championship game is actually after that. So those guys even have a couple days after that. And then the league will announce who the underclassmen are in the draft. Then you start playing around with it, because you know exactly all these guys are getting scouted. All these guys have got grades on them, but who's going to actually be in? And what makes a big difference is the NIL money, because they can get money to stay in school, which they couldn't get before. And some of these guys are getting well over $1 million. Well, why wouldn't you stay in school?
Exactly. Indeed, until your eligibility is up. Mr. Englewood has a question for you. What is the solution for the defense playing with bad gap integrity and our linebackers not playing well downhill on the attack?
Well, that was yesterday and a little bit last week. And this type of scheme, and it's not too dissimilar to Lovey's scheme. When one guy's out of position, it opens up a big hole. You got to have gap integrity, and that's a good word to use. And I know when Lovey was here and Bob Babbage had the linebackers, they would just work on that in the pre-practice routine and then the individual routine, literally 10, 15 minutes a day.
Mm-hmm.
And different defensive alignments, where's everybody supposed to go? Because you got to have somebody in every single gap. And when somebody breaks his assignment,
right,
that leaves a big opening.
Indeed. A lot of questions about how, what to do during the off season and so forth. And I don't want to.
It's too early to touch because let's see where they go. We know they're playing one playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I think that's a win.
Yeah.
After that, then are you playing home or are you playing on the road? We'll find out. Theoretically, if they're the number 2 seed and they win the wild card weekend, they're back home the next week.
Indeed.
And they wouldn't have to go on the road until the championship game. And if they're number 2 seed and San Francisco lost, well, they'd be playing the championship game here. So a lot of football still to be played. And let's find out, how some of these guys play. Because you're going to find out a lot about this team in playoff football, because it's a lot more competitive, tougher, physical type game than the regular season.
Indeed.
But I thought last night's game had a little playoff atmosphere to it because the number 1 seed was at stake a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Got some interesting questions here. Let me star one of them here, but let me get to this one first. And this one is from James Schmidt. He goes, do the Bears, don't you think the Bears need more speed on defense, especially at the linebacker position?
They got speed at the linebacker position. TJ's not a fast guy.
Right.
Okay, but
he makes up for it with his knowledge.
His instinct to make him a little bit faster, and the first play of the game showed that. Edmonds is a low 4, when he came out, low 4.5, high 4.4 player. The guy who took his place, Jackson, he was a mid 4.5 guy. They got a lot of, Sewell is a mid 4.5 guy. Hippolyte, who had, just a rookie, ran in the low 4.4s. They got a lot of speed at linebacker. TJ's the only guy who can't run.
Yep.
And I think the defensive backs got pretty good speed. Nashawn Wright is not a real sudden guy.
Mm-hmm.
So smaller, quick cutting wide receivers are going to give him more trouble than, say, a tall, long guy.
Yeah.
Because he just doesn't have that suddenness that you like a corner to have.
Indeed. Okay, let's get to this one here. True Pilgrim. He wants to know, what would you do to fix this defense if you were in charge of player personnel, whatever, GM, what have you, especially with the cap issues? And I'd like to try to help you answer this question, but why don't you go first? You're the expert here.
And I'm not avoiding the question, but right now it's hard. And the reason being is you got a process that you go through.
Yes.
Once the season gets over, now you review your coaches and your pro department do a review of the roster.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the coaches will put a grade, on each player, and the pro department, I'm doing it the way we did it, but everybody does it similar. But when we did that, the coaches would put a grade on the player, and they'd have a conclusion. You want this guy around, or he's somebody that you can let go, trade, whatever. And the pro people would say the same thing, and then you try to come up with an overall opinion on what the plan is for that particular player. Mm-hmm. So you're doing that for every position. So within a couple weeks of the season ending, they pretty much got a plan in mind going forward that'll take them into free agency. Mm-hmm. Now, last year, you got rid of the coaching staff, so you didn't have that. So you probably just had the pro department grading the players, and then you had the new coaching staff. The new coaching staff comes in and they look at the players and they say, I can live with this guy, can't live with this guy. And then they did what they did in free agency, but again, most of it was on the offensive side of the ball, except for Grady Jarrett. Well, no, he got brought in Dio too, and don't forget on the defense, two defensive linemen out for the season before him. Ode Ingbo and Shemar Stewart. I mean, that's two guys who are supposed to be huge players. And so you're going to get those guys back next year. And then who else? I think Billings is out of contract again.
I think you're right.
And because I think he had a new 2-year deal last year. Let me go into over the cap. We'll see this right now.
And Greg, let me just say that I was going to say the same thing that you just said, and you said it much more efficiently than I. They basically have to go through the process of doing evaluations on every single player and then discussing whether do we want him back next year. And if we don't want this guy back, can we move on from him without inheriting a terrible cap hit and making decisions like that? That's the next step. But you don't do that during the season. It's impossible to do it during the season because you're giving up. You're maybe Poles and his people are working on that, but the coaching staff definitely is not.
Yeah, and Andrew Billings is out of contract after this year. See, and he's a guy that, to me, he's one of the better players on the defensive line. He doesn't make any money as compared to the other guys. But he plays his ass off, and he is an anchor, and he's tough to move out of the way. But at the same time, when you watch him, here's a guy who probably weighs about 340, and he's chasing the ball 15, 20 yards down the field.
Yeah.
And you see it a lot. He hustles his ass off. Personally, that's a guy I'd want to bring back.
Yeah. What do you think of the play of Gervon Dexter? He's getting some hits in the chat room, still looking slow off the snap, and it's not necessarily.
Yeah, I don't think he's developed as well as what was hoped or anticipated.
I agree.
He makes plays. When you look at it, he's got like 5 or 5.5 sacks, which actually for an interior guy is a decent number.
Mm-hmm.
But you need more. He doesn't make the big play when you need the big play, even though he does make plays. He's a good rotational guy. They need better.
Yeah, I totally agree. And hopefully the draft is going to be one way. I understand, and this is preliminary, but the defensive tackles doesn't look like it's as strong as defensive ends in this draft class is something.
Yeah, I don't think the defensive end class is that strong myself, but there's still guys I got to do. Like, okay, you look at Dane or DJ, and they got the kid for Miami as a top 5 player. To me, like, how do you give this? How is that guy a top 5 player? He might have real short arms. He's got a real weird build for an edge player. He looks like a 3 technique, the way he's built. And I think he had 2 sacks in the final game. Before that, he had like 3 sacks going into the final game of the season. And then he had a couple, but if you got a pass rusher that doesn't get a lot of sacks, what is he?
He's a body.
Yeah, and he plays the run really well, but is he an elite pass rusher? I personally don't see it.
Yeah.
Okay, he has flashes of it, but you look at the numbers, and the numbers don't say he's an elite pass rusher.
Indeed. Laz is taking exception to something that you said. He says, "Come on, Greg, you can't bring back unproductive guys. Billings put on too much weight."
They wanted him to.
Exactly. It's not because he just wanted to eat.
Here's the thing. He is an anchor. His job is to occupy people.
Exactly. Laz, I urge you to watch the All-22, particularly from the end zone view, and just look at nobody but that big fat ass in the middle of the Bears defensive line. You will see that on 90% of the plays, he is double teamed. He is occupying 2 blockers so that our outside pass rushers or the other 3 tech defensive tackle have an opportunity to get in there. It's on them. It's on Gervon Dexter. It's on Montez Sweat and the other defensive end that are not getting there. They're not winning their one-on-ones, and Billings is doing the job to get those guys, give those guys a chance. That's what I see when I look at the tape.
You brought up Montez Sweat, and that's another name that I didn't see Kevin Fishbain snap counting. I don't even know if he tweeted it out yet. But he's a guy that, every time I'm looking a lot and he's not in there. I'm wondering if he was under the weather.
Yeah, it was Montez's worst game in probably 6, 7, 8 weeks, maybe even more than that.
But there was a lot of key situations where he wasn't in there. So and actually until he got a concussion, but what's the guy's name? Tyrell Shrinker or whatever the hell his name. I don't even know his name. The guy they traded for at the trade.
Shanky, whatever his name is. Yeah,
he was playing. He was getting a lot of snaps early on, and then he got a concussion. Yeah. So right away, I thought, the sweat or the flu bug hit Montez Sweat, just based on snaps. Let me see if I can, if Kevin Fishbain got it.
Yeah, he did. I got it called up right here. Let me tell you what. So Sweat had 62% of the snaps, 45 snaps, and Tyron had 16 snaps, 22%. And
what were the defensive line snaps across the board?
Okay, so starting with the most snaps on the defensive line,
Booker probably had the most.
Booker, exactly 90%. Jarrett, 68%. Sweat, 62%. Dexter, 57%. Billings, 51%. Dominic Robinson, 25%. And then Williams, 24%. Tyron, 22%. So that's all the defensive linemen, according to Fishbain's report there.
Okay. They actually Sweat played a little bit more than I thought, but still 60%. is not a big number for a guy who's supposed to be your best pass rusher.
I totally agree. All right, we got some more good questions here. Thank you, everyone, for submitting questions. And I apologize if I don't get to your question, but we will do our best here. All right, so we got this one from Vince. Oh, Obradovich and Hampton declared that the Bears have arrived last night. It's unbelievable to me that those two Bears greats finally say that the Bears have arrived on a night when the defense gave up so many points. These two defensive greats, they've been shitting on Caleb Williams all season long, and finally they have something nice to say about the Bears. I don't get it. I
don't even listen. I just think they're so far off on some stuff.
I totally agree. Love them. I love what they did for the Bears, but man, in terms of analysts, I'm not sure about you guys. Steven Nagishi asks, what is Shemar Turner's best position moving forward? Is he an edge with Dio maybe moving in for 20?
Well, Dio isn't a inside guy on base downs.
Right.
He's not big enough.
Mm-hmm.
What the plan was for him was to play him outside on base downs and inside on pass downs, because actually he's a pretty good interior pass rusher.
Gotcha.
And Shemar was originally drafted, based on his tape from 24 at Texas A&M, to be like a 3 technique type guy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, when you go back and you look at his history at A&M, until 24, he was a 270-pound edge and actually pretty good at it. They got the new head coach in 24, and they had him gain weight. He got up to about 290, 295, and he played inside, and he played well too. And he was playing hurt a lot of the year on top of that, but he still played, and he's a high motor guy. So the Bears drafted, if you go back to right after the draft and even during OTAs, people ask that question, what are you going to put Shemar Turner? He's a defensive tackle. He's a defensive, and this has been saying this.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden it was really late in camp or middle of camp, they start putting him outside a little bit, and he was doing stuff, and they're going, well, maybe he can play outside a little better. And I think it was a surprise to the coaching staff. And he starts getting reps outside. He's actually playing good. And then he goes down with the injury. So, frustration for everybody involved because he didn't get the development that you need. But he's going to be like getting another high pick next year. And I've said this before, and I continue to believe this. I think you're going to see him coming in next year at 265 to 270, not 295.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Okay. I'll tell you what, the boy can run.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he's got real good length. He's over 6'3". He's got like 34-inch arms or 34.5-inch arms. That's a player there that you have that might be a lot better than you think. Because you just didn't, and I say that because you just didn't get an opportunity to see him. Once he started playing good at that position, he hurt his knee, and it's all over.
Yeah. Okay. Petty King has a question here that I really like, because I think this is the crux of the Bears advancing to the Super Bowl. Can the Bears hide their lack of pass rush to make a run to the title game?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you get into these playoff games and weaknesses can show up. And I'm talking not necessarily the first round, but after that.
Yep.
Because now you got, you're talking the top 4 teams. And it's just or top 4 teams for each division or each conference. And when you try to disguise stuff, can you blitz more? Well, yeah, but if you're playing a good quarterback and you blitz more, he'll kill you. And so, you gotta mix it up. And they just gotta make more plays, and you've got to. Each player's got to pay attention to detail. I'm not going to, people are getting all worried again. That's one thing about this fan base that drives you nuts. They overreact and over worry about things.
It's in our blood, I'll tell you that.
Okay, so the team's pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one play away from beating what is perhaps the best team in the NFC yesterday. So,
good.
And the offense is I think yesterday was a coming out day for the offense. The offense was moving the ball like we had hoped to see. And Caleb played really good. Well, and that's one of the reasons why I'm excited to play Green Bay, because Green Bay sucks. And so, and I said to you, if Green Bay was smart, they keep Willis a quarterback and bench Love, because Love's terrible compared to the other guy. But I don't think they're that smart.
I think LaFleur is a good offensive coach. I think part of the reason Malik is playing so well is because of LaFleur. Would you give him that?
Oh, yeah. But, it's between the coaching staff and the front office. Malik is coming out of contract.
Yeah.
You going to lose him?
I would trade Jordan Love for a bunch of draft picks and start all over.
I could go into over the cap again and see what his contract, the cap hit they get. See, they got money problems, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. Parsons making a lot of money. Love's making a lot of money. They're going to have to cut some people just to keep the guys they gave all the money to.
Yeah, indeed. Hey, a lot of people talking about trade for this guy, trade for that guy, and Max Crosby's name comes up like about as often as I breathe. Inhale, exhale. Max Crosby.
Well, you gotta have $35 million to pay him next year. That's what his contract is.
Exactly. He's taking up 12% of the Raiders' cap. 35.
Where are they going to get the $35 million?
I don't see where. People in the chat saying, yeah, I would easily trade 2 first-round picks for Crosby. First of all, you're not going to get him for 2 first-rounders. Secondly, the money, you don't have it.
He's got like 4 years left on a deal.
Yeah.
And so let's get his deal up here.
He does have a potential out in 2028, but still, it's almost impossible to afford him. If you're going to pay Caleb Williams the kind of money that he's going to
demand, that's what you got to pay. You can pay Caleb a year from February. You can start paying him,
right,
if you so desire.
Exactly. You got to develop the guys you got and draft well. That's the answer to this pass rush problem. And Laz is saying you can move money around. Packers did it with Parsons and so forth. But has that Parsons move paid off for them? You're getting rid of so much of your assets, and now you're getting one player back. Yes, he's a superstar, but he's injured. And so
he missed 5 games last year, and he played hurt. Now he's on IR. He needs knee surgery. He needs a meniscus surgery. And he really hasn't played at 100% the last month. But his contract next year, he got a prorated signing bonus of $5.1 million. That goes away. His base salary is $30 million, per game roster bonus $782,000. He's dead money to the Raiders of $35 million. That's cut pre-June 1st, but the salary comes off. So it's really, the dead money isn't going to be that bad for them to trade him. But who's got the Bears got to find the 30 to pay him. And it's not that you don't want to do it. Now let's just look at the projection for the Bears for 26. Right now, team cap space for the Chicago Bears for 2026 is $1.2 million based on today's salary.
Yeah. Now, of course, you can move players around like Laz is saying and stuff, but
But then not, and you don't have a safety on the roster.
Right. Here's the problem, Laz, is then you're doing what Ryan Poles did with Khalil Mack. You're setting up.
Not Ryan Poles, Ryan Pace.
Ryan Pace, excuse me. You're basically making that mistake where you're getting into salary cap hell. You've got to draft and develop. That's the way to win in this league. It truly, truly is. Now, I'll tell you this. The Bears do have a potential out on Montez Sweat. Greg, can you go to Montez Sweat's salary contract?
Next year, his base salary is $20.9 million. Prorated signing bonus is 4.085. His guaranteed salary is $10 million. His cap number is $25,085,000.
Right. So the potential out for 2026 is that you would have to eat almost $9 million of Montez Sweat's salary. And so you've got to weigh that. Like Greg was talking about, stuff that's going to happen in the off season as soon as the season's in.
Well, so now, the thing is with over the cap, they put dead money cut pre-June 1st, cut post-June 1st, but they don't have anything for trade. But if you cut him, and they wouldn't do that, there's $18 million of dead money, $18.1 million in dead money, which you can't afford when they only got DJ. Let's look at DJ. DJ is, and this is stuff I really want to do weeks from now, but
yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to
DJ in 26 has a base salary of $23,485,000, prorated signing bonus of $4 million, and he's still got prorated signing bonus of $12 million, $4 million each. So if you traded him, you got a $12 million cap hit for the prorated signing bonus right off the bat. But you're saving the base salary of 23, so it $23,485. In essence, you're picking up about an $11 million savings in cap by trading DJ.
Would you trade DJ? Would you entertain the thought? Let me phrase it that way.
I mean, I don't know. Like you saw what he did last week. He is revered in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but the Bears are getting to a situation now where there's up and coming players that you got to pay, and they got to make tough decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be in the tough decision department.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do you get? Part of it is, what are you getting for them?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So what if a team comes to you and say, boy, you guys have, Greg, you Bears are loaded at wide receiver. I want one of those young guys. Give me Rome Odunze. I don't want to take on defense.
They aren't trading Rome.
What if they offer you a first rounder and a third rounder, and then
now you're playing shoulda, coulda, woulda.
No, I'm playing hypotheticals.
Yeah, but I just don't think that's like, no, we're not trading him. He's a first round pick that's in the second year of his rookie deal. That's the guy you want. Yeah. You know, the guy you want to move is the 29-year-old guy.
I agree with that, but it could be hard to trade him because of the money he's making.
Well, his deal can be restructured by the team. His deal, he's got, what did I say, $23 million in, because I got out of that window. It's like $23 million next year. The signing bonus, the Bears have to cover the signing bonus. That comes up. So there's $12 million in prorated signing bonus that would come off. That would be dead money to the Bears next year, but they pick up the 23.8. So it nets out, about $11.5 million savings in cap. The new team can take that contract and either restructure the contract or take some of that $23 million and turn it into bonus and lower and create cap space.
Okay.
So it's advantageous for that to do that. But I think them even thinking of or anybody thinking of trading a Roma Dunze is just crazy. But they think, here's the thing: who are you going to replace DJ with? Well, I can tell you who you're replacing with. You have to draft another guy.
Absolutely.
Because that's how you're going to replace him. Because there's nobody here that can do it.
Right. You can't count on Zacchaeus. Unfortunately, you just can't.
Well, he's out of contract too. He's on a one-year deal.
Right. All right. Let me ask you this question. Here are some of the free agents for the Chicago Bears after the season is completed. In March, they become free agents. Just give me a gotta sign them, I gotta think about it, or let them go on each of these names. Start with Jaquan Brisker.
Think about it.
Okay, excellent. Kevin Byard.
Sign.
Andrew Billings.
Sign. He's cheap.
Ryan Bates.
He's gone.
Braxton Jones.
Gone. But none of those guys save you any money on the cap because they're out of contract.
That's a good point. Same thing with OZ, the rest of these guys on the list. Yeah, it gets pretty slim after that. The top two guys are the safeties, and Billings, and so yeah, you let them go. You're not going to save tons of money, that's for sure. Because those guys, at least not Billings, but the other guys, I shouldn't say the other guys. Billings is still under his rookie contract. This way, I should say.
Who is still under his rookie contract?
Brisker.
Yeah, but he's out. He's out of that. But he's been relatively, last year he missed a lot of time, and I think there was some unknown things going on there. There was something going on between him and Flus, or him and the defensive coaches that, wasn't put out in the public. But put it this way. There was no love lost from Brisker when Flus got let go.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's been healthy this year and played a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
But what's he going to cost? And you're not going to be able to re-sign all these guys. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. And as part of that process, Greg, that you talked about earlier in terms of making decisions for next year, you're also taking into account is where are the strengths in the draft, right? Where are the strengths in potential free agents?
Right.
We won't know if they're free agents until the day before their free agency starts. And so that's all part of the equation. So when people are asking questions about next year, yeah, we have to be patient with that. First of all, we got an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl. What are we talking about next year for?
Oh, let's go one step at a time.
Yes,
you got an opportunity to win one playoff game. You win that, you go to the next one. You win you go to the next one.
There you go.
And that's the way I'm going to think.
Yeah, exactly.
One week at a time.
And I'll even take it a step earlier. We got an opportunity to beat the shit out of the Detroit Lions, something that I relish doing at Chicago. And
I think the head coach has got a little payback in his mind on that one.
I think so,
and that's another good thing about not winning yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
If they won yesterday, that game next week would have been basically meaningless.
It would have been Tyson Bagent.
Might have been.
Yeah.
And now it's got meaning. And I think that between the players and the head coach, they're going to want a little payback.
I think you are absolutely right. So what is your gut feel about this upcoming game against the Lions? Are you guaranteeing a victory?
Yeah, that's a lock. This one's a lock.
This one's a lock?
This was to me was a lock when the schedule came out.
There you go. I like the way you think. I like the way I'm looking to see if there's any other questions I want to make sure to squeeze in before we sign off. Petty King has another good one. Says, Greg, lack of gap integrity would that be on the players, the defensive line coach, or a combination of both?
Mostly it's on the players.
Because they're taught that, right?
They're taught what to do. They gotta, the word execute. They got to execute the play.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. You think the Lions are going to sit some starters Sunday?
Who knows? They're how many have they lost in a row now? It's been
3.
They've lost 3 in a row. Green Bay's lost 3 in a row. How about this? And something the cheeseheads don't understand. You know what Green Bay's record is the last 9 games? 4-5.
I was going to say 5-4, but it's 4-5. Wow. Yeah, they are.
We're going to go. Some of these delusional, cholesterol-filled goofballs are, we're going to go to the Super Bowl. Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. One other thing that I want to say, Greg, and I think you will agree with me, is all of this talk about bringing in superstars and so forth. I'd love to see Max Crosby or some other superstar on the defensive line or whatever position. But when you start doing that, you really hurt your chances of building quality depth. And in today's NFL, where we're playing 17 games, that could possibly be playing 18 games next season or the season afterwards, you need depth now more than ever before in the history of this game. So let's keep that in mind.
Let's do this too. Who can be given? Well, they got to either choose to pick up his fifth year, or they can, after the season's over, can start negotiating a new contract for at right tackle. You think they want to keep him? You're damn right they want to keep him. He had a Pro Bowl caliber year this year. Okay, he's going to cost a lot of money.
He is.
And if he isn't going to be this offseason, it's going to be next offseason.
Like about $18 million, right?
Keep going. He's a tackle.
20, 21, 22.
Yeah, and so we want to pay $35 million for a 29-year-old defensive end. You gotta think. That is the main job of the general manager. Yeah. You got to manage that player roster and pay the right people.
Yeah, I'm telling you,
tough decision. There's going to be guys that are fan favorites that are not going to be here next year.
Yep.
And who they are, I don't have a clue. Right. But it's going to be play, and people will piss and moan. But you got to go. That's all the good teams. Look at all the players Baltimore has let go year after year after year, and they were a perennial playoff contender. Look at all the good players Philly has lost year after year after year. Perennial playoff team. Same thing with Buffalo. Yeah. You gotta make tough decisions. And the Bears, because they spent a lot of money this past off season just to get themselves in a competitive way, and they now the money's tight. Like I said, right now the projected cap, they got $1.2 million. And that's not counting guys like Bates and Braxton Jones, because they're not under contract. That's just the guys under contract.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric has an interesting thought here. He's curious, since Adam Schefter reported that the Bears were kicking the tires and getting Myles Garrett from the Browns, you have to wonder what kind of cap clearing measures the Bears had in place to even inquire at the deadline. First of all, I don't remember Schefter saying that, but I'm not going to doubt Eric. But
could you have made a call? You always make a call.
Yeah. Is
it a serious call? I mean, there's guys, I got out of the page, so I'm not going to bring it back up because it's getting late. But, you haven't restructured DJ yet. You haven't restructured Montez Sweat yet. And there's some other deals you could restructure that can create money. But at the same time, every time you do that, all you're doing is stretching that out. It means you got to pay for it later. It's not like it goes away. You're just stretching it out. And you got to pay Caleb. You got to pay Wright. You got to pay Austin Booker. These guys, there's young guys coming up. You got to pay.
Got to pay them.
Rome Odunze, Loveland, all these guys got to get paid in a few years.
I got a question for you based on a debate, a respectful debate I had on social media yesterday. Somebody posted something like, "You may not want to hear this, but the reason the Bears are so good this season is because of Kevin Warren." And he cited these reasons. Number one, Kevin Warren got the Chicago Bears management to pay $15 million to acquire Ben Johnson. He has changed the culture that now the Bears are not hiring $4 or $5 million a year coaches, and that they're hiring great coaches, expensive coaches. Do you agree, first of all, with the assessment that Kevin Warren deserves a lot of credit for the Bears turnaround? And secondly, do you agree that Warren had a big role in acquiring Ben Johnson? I know that this is a tough one.
No, I don't think he had a big role.
Okay.
I mean, I think, between him and Ryan, they talked to the agent beforehand. They knew what it was going to cost. Mm-hmm. Hey, it's going to cost us, this guy's going to cost $14 million a year. You good with that? Mm-hmm. And that's real quick. Yay or nay? I mean, George is going to say yay or nay right away. And you've sat and talked with George a little bit. If George thinks that's the right thing to do, he's going to go thumbs up.
Yep.
100% of the time. So could Ted have done the same thing? Yeah, Ted. We weren't cheap when Ted was there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cheap with us. not with players and not with coaches.
That's hilarious.
I used to have to go into his office and do my contract.
That's great. Where Scroll says, let's give Warren his credit. Where should we give Warren credit?
Well, yeah, I mean, you get the buck stops here type of thing. I mean, he's the president, so he answers to the owner. The GM answers to him.
Right.
He's got to buy into the plan. But I think Kevin, he's a politician. And if you haven't figured that out, then you don't know who the man is. Mm-hmm. He's got politician written all over him. His main job is to get that stadium built.
Mm-hmm.
And
I got to disagree with Las again. He says Warren had to talk to George about that bag that went to Ben. George is not comfortable with that. I disagree with that, Las.
No, George, agree. That's see, know what that is? That is the old, I think I know what I'm talking about, but I really don't. I'm pulling it out my ass. George never has had a problem spending any money. Michael never had a problem spending any money. All you got to do is tell them why you want to spend it.
Exactly.
Khalil
Mack money? Come on.
When I had to do my budget for the next year, like in November and in December, and then it would go to Karen Murphy and to Ted and get approved or whatever. And now you get into, say, April or May or something like this, and something comes up when I needed money that wasn't in the budget. And now it's like, okay, now I got to go to Ted. And every time that happened, I'm not going to say it happened a lot, but every time it happened, I needed $500,000 to get such and such done. Mm-hmm. You told them why. Tell me why. You tell them why. Fine, done. It was that easy. That franchise has never, at least as long as I've been around here. So now we're talking 25 years. It'll be 25 years in June. They have never, the powers that be have never said no to anything. And anybody that wants to say they have just doesn't know what the hell they're talking about, because it's not fact. That's just fiction.
Laz goes on to say, what did Eberflus make? $5 million maybe? So George said to Ryan, hey, let's triple that and get the hot coordinator. Well, yeah. Why shouldn't he say that? Why?
No, here's what happened. They had their candidates. Okay. And first of all, they know what there is each GM has what everybody's making around the league. He's got a chart. Mm-hmm. And it's got, by individual, and it's also got the high, the low, the median. You got all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So, it's funny because when I'd go in to negotiate a contract with Ted, he had the high, the low, the median, right? So he'd want you to hit the median in the last year of your contract. And I go, no, Ted, I want that now. Because it's going up, and but that was with players, though, it's a different story because you got to pay whatever the market. If you want the player, you got to pay. And you go back, Khalil Mack, look at the contract he got.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's what, 7 years ago now?
Exactly.
Something like that, so anybody who comes up with this stuff really, it's really just old wives' tale and made up fodder that has no fact to it whatsoever.
Yeah. Greg, here's how I look at this as a Chicago sports fan since the 1960s. The old guard of ownership in this town, George Halas, Arthur and Bill Wirtz, William Wrigley from the Chicago Cubs, Bill Veeck from the White Sox. Those guys struggled mightily to continue the franchise year after year. They had trouble making money, and it was very difficult for them to start once the cash started coming in from TV deals. It was very difficult for them to start to change their minds about contracts. What Mike Ditka said about George Halas, he throws around nickels like they're manhole covers. That was true back then. But once
different world.
Yeah, it's a different world, and the successor came in, like Rocky Wirtz came in for the Blackhawks, and they won 3 championships in 5 or 6 years. Things changed. They learned that you got to spend money to make money, and I think George McCaskey knew that as soon as he took the job. That's my feeling.
Yeah, George is so easy, and again, I go back to you and I talking to him. He's the easiest guy in the world to get along with.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
All you got to do is tell him why.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll say, okay. Give him good reasoning why. That's all.
He trusts the people who make those decisions.
Right. But, for Ben Johnson, they knew before they interviewed him in a Zoom interview exactly what it was going to cost to sign him to a contract. Yeah. They already did their research on that. How there was the year before when everybody thought he was going to go to Washington, there was a talk out there he's going to cost $12 to $13 million.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And some people were laughing at it. Guess what? It cost him 14. That's you want the guy, that's what you had to pay.
Yeah.
Okay, so they knew that. He was their guy. I don't know what Vrabel got. I don't know what Pete Carroll got. I don't know what the guy down in Jacksonville got. But they didn't have – Vrabel had a decent resume. But the guy at Jacksonville, he didn't have the resume that Ben had.
Indeed. I wanted to get Greg's expert opinion on that because I was having this discussion with somebody, and I'm referring to Arnie on this, who is saying, Ben is hired, let's talk about the Bears. But we do have to talk about the role that the president has played, the GM, and so forth. I want to give credit to where credit is due. The big credit needs to go to Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson. And Ryan Poles, I was critical of the last couple of years, but he corrected the mistake by going out and getting the guy. And if Kevin Warren had some role in that, in convincing George, I really agree with Ryan on this, then he should get an attaboy. But sometimes Kevin really loves that spotlight, Greg, and you know this, and,
Yep.
and he makes it seem like he was behind some of these decisions. And I think that I bet you deep down, Ryan kind of resents that a little bit. He appreciates.
I can't. I don't have an answer to that because
I'm
we
speculating.
really don't know. But
Yes.
you're right. He wants to be in the forefront. He's got an ego, just like a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
But to go back to the process, and I remember like it was yesterday. Each one they had. The interviews were done separately. Like Kevin Warren interviewed Ben at a different. I mean, it was the same day, but Ryan Poles interviewed him first, and maybe Kevin, and then the other people on that team, and George, had spent time with them. But each one kept their own book, so to speak. This is number one. This is number two. This is number three. And if you recall, Ryan said, "I never said who I wanted. I never told anybody who I wanted until the end when it was time to make a decision. This is who I want." And by contract, he's the guy who makes the decision. Now, people can say whatever they want. It's in his contract.
Mm-hmm. That's the other key point to this. Kevin Warren didn't make the decision to hire Ben Johnson, just like he didn't make the decision to draft Caleb Williams. He didn't make the decision to draft Luther Burden. He was told the plan by Ryan Poles, and I'm sure Kevin asked some very smart questions, just like George asked of you when you went to him with ideas and more requests for more money. But outside of that, this is Ryan Poles' master plan finally coming to fruition.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Did Kevin have part of it? Yeah, of course he had part of it. He's the president of the franchise. Mm-hmm. But when you look at, and I brought this up a lot last year to talk about, look at what the contracts say. Mm-hmm. The contracts supersede all this bullshit talk.
Indeed. The
contracts say the general manager is in charge of the 53-man roster, not the head coach. Exactly. The general manager runs the draft, not the head coach. That doesn't mean he wants input.
Yeah.
Of course he does. But
he'd be stupid not to get input.
At the same time, now you go on the contract, the coach says who plays.
Mm-hmm.
The coach has the power over who he hires.
Flex Diggs says Kevin Warren is a crook. Where'd you get that from, Flex? He doesn't have a criminal record. What do you know that we don't know? That's hilarious. All right, Greg, I am about 30 minutes past my bedtime, my nap time.
Yeah, and you're dealing with in case anybody didn't know it, Aldo's the guy who got the Bears all sick with his flu, but
I don't want to say what my Friday night was like because it's about lunchtime for you people, so I won't even talk about it. But I had a tough weekend, man. Yeah. Anyway,
Aldo was making love to the porcelain bowl. He was out.
Oh yeah, indeed. You know what? And then the paramedics show up, and those motherfuckers, excuse my language, they didn't even help me get up and put me back in bed. They said, all right, you're on your own. You got neurovirus. We're not going to touch you. They left.
I don't even know what that is. I never heard of it until you wrote it down.
Yeah, it's a special flu that lasts about 24 hours, and you're basically shitting and vomiting at the same time. It's bad.
It's good for losing weight then.
Yeah, it is. I think I'm down.
Look at the positive side.
I think I'm down 15 pounds since I had the stroke a month ago.
You really are foolish.
All right, Greg, let's promise to be back here at 11 a.m. next Monday after the Bears beat the Detroit Lions.
At 11 next Monday. I got a doctor appointment.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't realize, and I can't change it because, he only works. He's the Bears internist, been mine since I came here. And he's semi-retired. He only works Mondays and Thursdays. Mm-hmm. And I made the appointment January, and I wasn't thinking. And I can't change it. It's at 11 o'clock.
So you want to try to do it late Monday afternoon?
We can do a late Monday and Tuesday. You got rehab, right?
I do have rehab on Tuesday. I can
Well, then
maybe
we
change
can
the
do it.
schedule.
No, we can do it late in the afternoon next
Yeah,
Monday.
2 o'clock, 3 o'clock kind of thing.
I should be back by then. Yeah, I mean it'll be a long appointment. It always is. I got to get a physical and all that.
Oh, they're gonna put the finger up there.
No, that urologist does that shit.
You're a lucky man. All right. I want to thank everyone in the chat. Great stuff. You guys really brought it, challenged us with some great questions. And those who sent a few bucks over, Kevin Lutz and Stephen McGee. If I'm missing anybody else, I apologize. Thank you all very much. We got a show, I think, tomorrow night on the Barroom Network. Best way to stay on top of stuff is subscribe to the channel, and we will all see you next time. God bless.
And next week at this time, we will be the number 2 seed.
Yeah, baby.
Getting ready to play some cheeseburgers.
I love it. Take care, everyone.
See you later.